Hi everyone, I'm Damien.
And I'm Jeremy.
Welcome to our Suburb Data podcast, where we cover everything from property investing to expert busting. If you're new here, we share our personal and professional experiences from over 20 years in the game. So you skip the mistakes we made and go straight to property investment success. And today, Jez, the episode is Nobody Told Me the Realities of Property Investing.
A lot of lessons learned.
A lot of lessons. So I think coming up with this episode, it's not data focused, it is opinion. And I want to just start that episode that it's, my opinion. And I think a lot of, individuals out there would state their opinion as fact, be it on social media, and use marketing tactics to bring business in. And I think this episode is more geared to, all the experience that I've had and you've had in our time, in the finance game and property investing game and dealing with clients in and out, especially from my side over 7+ years, day in, day out, seeing people in different circumstances. And what I see in the industry, I get frustrated. So this episode is really geared towards that. It's our opinion, and we're not saying everyone is like this. It's just that there are individuals, and just for you to be wary, ask a lot of questions, and don't sign an engagement form right away just from the first initial consultation that you have with a business. Do your homework, do your research, because it's very tricky out there, isn't it?
Yeah. There's a lot of sharks.
And I remember early on, like I'm talking maybe 2014-ish, around there, 2013 to 2014, when I was really getting into the whole property investing and educating myself. There was some great podcasts, and I think I've mentioned On Property. That sort of got me, Ryan McLean got me into the whole property investing, and I learned a lot. And then I did listen to a lot of podcasts, and there were ones that did really resonate with me, but I went to a lot of property seminars, and they used a lot of, we'll actually dive into it, but there was a lot of noise out there. And even these days, I think there's maybe even more noise because there's a lot more
social media.
So it can be really, really tricky.
Everyone's got a voice now. Everyone's got an opinion.
So let's start with, misleading claims and titles in property investing. So my first point would be, the word guarantee or limited, if there's time pressure. So you're constantly getting texts, have you bought a property? What are you waiting for? So business will try and hit you at the fact that you need to sign now, or this deal is gone, or we've got a big wait list. You need to go on, you need to go on that waiting list.
Yeah, property is generally a longer term investment than, say, Bitcoin or shares or whatever. So yeah, you don't have to be in a rush. I mean, there are markets that are pretty hot and they're moving quickly, and maybe in a couple of weeks you might have missed out on $5,000 worth of growth. But as soon as I hear that, this opportunity is only available for a short time, I just immediately, that puts up the walls.
Or when you hear a word like, I'm going to guarantee you this, you need to ask questions. You need to be skeptical, don't you?
Yeah. Healthy level of skepticism.
And I think for me, the way that I've navigated through, I wouldn't say investing, but it's more, it is investing, is like asset allocation. You allocate your money depending on where you are in your accumulation phase, or maybe you're getting closer to retirement. You adjust your asset class. So, or, for example, you might have more exposure to shares or more exposure to property. So you have to work out, what are you comfortable with? And a lot of people are comfortable with real estate in Australia.
Yeah, because everyone lives in a house, or home. Yeah, they know.
And the other thing is, fancy titles, specifically in property. So I've seen words being thrown out, maybe like professor. I've heard a professor out there, a doctor of property.
I don't think there's a.
Are you sure? I swear I've seen a doctor of property out there.
Doctor of what?
Doctor of
BS?
Well, I don't know. It's just these fancy titles don't sit well with me. And I think education is a crucial role, because you made a good point when we've discussed it in the past, is property is very much an experience-based game. Obviously, it helps having, I've done my finance degree, accounting degree. I did a certificate in financial planning. my real estate course. And look, it's just look, you learn a lot, and but I think a lot of it is from experience, from what you learn. And I've lost money in shares, and you learn from that. I've held a property that hasn't performed. You learn from that experience, and no amount of books can teach you. Even running a business, you can read a business book, or you can talk to your commerce professor or at a university, but have they run a business before?
Yeah, I think
So you got to be careful who you take advice from.
yeah, some of the lessons I've learned have been extremely expensive, and they could only have been learned by skin in the game.
Again, we've discussed this a lot, but it's more about how can you flush out, I guess, let's say you're doing a research on a company. I think understanding their past performance is a big deal. And there's a lot of great companies out there that do really well for their clients. But are they only going to show you all their highlight reel, or are they going to show you their bad picks? If they're open to showing the ones that haven't performed, that would build trust for me.
Yeah, because you want to know what's typical, not what's the best possible case. What's typical? What am I going to get?
Because you can, I guess, on a website, and it's we had a chat a while ago with an SEO company consultant, and look, I got rubbed up the wrong way a little bit. I tried to keep my cool as much as I can, but when they said we needed to do certain things, I took it on, but it just wasn't the style that we want to do in the future. More about, hey, we just want to show everyone our positive reviews. How about the negative reviews? If you're going to have a website, show you the negative ones too. Don't hide those.
Yeah, I think the marketing department would just jump up and down about that.
And you can't make everyone happy. I get that. So I just think it's just be wary when you go. You're just going to see the highlight reel. Property investment advisors, I guess. Look, anyone can be, I guess, a property investment advisor. It's not really regulated, depending on it depends what they're advising on. They can maybe talk about price points or yield or growth, depending on someone's circumstances and cash flows. But it is really a fine line, and I think experience is a big part in it. And you just need to ask questions. So if you go into a company and talking to some advisor early on, you need to understand, I guess, their credentials. Have they got a portfolio? My big worry about that is you might go see one advisor and they're going to give you a specific advice. You're going to go to another advisor, they're going to give you different advice. So it's not regulated.
Yeah, I think that's the key.
Big
it's
problem.
Not regulated.
Because ideally what you want is you go in and you've got a problem that needs to be solved. What do I do with my current circumstances? And maybe we might get with AI that they can look at all your financials, how much exposure you've got to property, your risk profiling, your exposure to shares, how much super, how far you are to retirement. It might compute going, okay, you don't need to go spend $800K on a property. Maybe it's only $400 because you've only got a 5-year window to retirement. So that's just one thing. So maybe for me, it's do a lot of initial consultations with different businesses to see. And look, it does take time. I get it. We live in a busy world, and it's you just want to tick something off your list. I want to buy that investment, get it out of the way, and forget about it. But it's just such a big investment. You can't get wrong.
Even a small property like $500,000 you're allocating. It's big. It's important.
And the back end of this episode, I've got something to show, which is my favorite point in this whole episode. Big property portfolios. So I guess companies boasting about how big their portfolios are. And again, I'm not coming here from a negative point of view. Good luck. If you do well in property, fantastic. I'm really happy. But should you be boasting about how big your portfolio is to bring business in?
Well, yeah, the thing that rubs me up the wrong way about this is how misleading it is. So investors are thinking, oh, if I just follow their practice, what they did, I can have a similar sort of portfolio. What you would have to follow is not how they invested in property, is how they marketed their business, because that's how they made their money. They didn't buy one property which had doubled in value in 6 months, and then they leapfrogged and bought another. And they poured the profits of their business into their portfolio. I know one person, I think it was about 10 years ago now, they revealed their portfolio size. And I think back then it was something like $20 million. Now, they have a very large buyer's advocacy. And I had access to, I think, well over 100 of their past picks where they recommended these markets for investors. And it was atrocious. If they had invested in the same locations, there's no way they could have built a $20 million portfolio. That portfolio is built by them marketing themselves as an expert. And once they've got the portfolio, that's what they use in their marketing as well, and it just keeps going.
Well, that's where the money's really made, isn't it? Through the businesses.
Yeah, that's right. You could have a dog wash and follow their marketing and do better than having an investment portfolio.
Cherry pick properties. I think I've mentioned this before. They'll just show you what you want to see.
Yeah, best and ignore the rest. Yeah, show the best, ignore the rest.
But a lot of them do that now. Like, it's just not one. There's a lot of companies that do it. And I guess from a marketing perspective, I guess it's the only angle that you've really got. What you'd want to see is you see their whole book to go, hey, these are all our picks. This is our wins, our losses, how much we've purchased it, what it's grown at. I just don't know how you would do that. That's the thing.
Yeah. And I've seen property reports marketed as well along the same lines. Here's what we picked 2 years ago. Here's how it's performed. But they conveniently leave out, half a dozen of those picks that went terribly wrong.
I remember you did early on in your career, you purchased, when you got in the game, how long ago you purchased a report off a industry expert?
Yeah, it was back in 2008. Infrastructure-based area. It's going to explode. Bought there. I sold 14 years later for about 20% less than what I paid for it, whilst the rest of the country had doubled in value.
But I know you've spoken a lot about those areas that haven't had growth, have a high opportunity for capital growth. So has that property picked up now? If you look at it?
Yeah, every market has its shiny times and its terrible times. And as we speak, it's a pretty good market to buy into.
That's right. And I guess as long as if you did sell it, you made that decision and you shifted gears or used those funds to purchase elsewhere, then it sort of does work.
Yeah, well, I analysed this market and I thought, it's probably going to boom, but not for a couple of years yet. And I want to get out and put that money elsewhere.
Good old property reports.
Yeah.
Don't look at the suburbs in isolation, people. All right. Who can you really trust? So again, back from my experience, we're doing a lot of initial consultations and even early on, like attending initial consultations. I just love the email. Actually, I didn't factor this in, but the massive email campaigns that you get after giving your email address, I'm like, just leave me alone, please. But I would say don't blindly trust real estate agents, because a real estate agent, they sell properties. That's how they make money, and they know their specific pockets. But I wouldn't be going to a real estate agent for property investment advice. Because a lot of people would instantly think, I'll go to a real estate agent. They know property because they sell property, but they only know their pocket.
Yeah, I think that, one of the things that I'm always surprised to hear, here's an investor, probably a novice investor. They've gone into an area and they say they've built up this relationship with a real estate agent so they can get, the off-market deals. So picture yourself as the real estate agent. What are you good at? You are good at selling property. You're a sales expert. You've maybe got your license, or you've done some course. You've sat down in the living room with your potential client. You've walked around their home. You've had a cup of tea with them. That's relationship building. And then you've signed a contract. They've signed a contract with you. So you are now representing them. You have a legally binding document, and now this relative stranger turns up to a couple of open homes, believes they've become your best friend, and now you're going to put your career in jeopardy by giving them a $20,000 discount. No, they have sold to you the idea that it's a $20,000 discount, but you're the one who's been marketed to.
We're going to come across as really, I guess, negative, but we want to just be skeptical. Be skeptical of everyone, even us. Be skeptical. Like, it takes time. Like, you listen to it, because I know in the past that I did listen to a podcast, and it's a way to build trust, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've got a podcast, so I must be an expert.
Well, I fell for it. Well, I did.
I've written a book. I must be
But
an
things
expert.
change, and I think you just need to just ask questions. And look, no one knows the answer to everything, but it's like you just need to use a bit of your judgment and just don't willy-nilly give your money away just because you see an ad or someone is a smooth talker,
Yeah.
slick.
Good advice.
Taking advice from a generalist. So I would think, I wouldn't say generalist, maybe, let's say I wouldn't get property investment advice. And I've seen this before where accountants and financial planners have referred to developers, clients that they've bought like these land and house packages, and these areas have had negative growth or off the plan units. Again, I know a lot of our listeners would know that you'd steer clear from that anyway, but the people that don't, be careful that you're just not listening blindly to an accountant or a financial planner.
What about a dentist?
A dentist.
Yeah. Because they're a doctor.
That's right. Yes, a dentist.
They're a
Depends.
doctor.
It depends of a doctor of what. Are they a doctor of property?
Yeah, there's no doctor of property.
So, yeah, I think that's the one. I had property investment advisors there again. I think just, again, ask questions, credentials, their property investment experience. Buyers, agents that promising under market or off market deals. Again, marketing ploy, because you have to think there's so much competition out there. So how can you separate yourselves? And they all do very similar things from a marketing perspective, don't they?
Yeah, it's this off-market thing has become a marketing term. I remember seeing this a sale board. You know, when you're selling a property, they once you sign the contract, they put a board up in your front yard saying, here's a property for sale, contact this agent for details. And on the board, it said off-market opportunity. I was like, hang on a second. It's advertising to everyone who goes past, this property is for sale. How is that off-market? It's just a term now used in marketing, off-market.
Well, I think the off-market reasons, maybe privacy is one, or if you want to move the deal quickly. But if you want premium dollars for your property, you want to get more eyes on it, don't you?
Yeah, the
interest.
genuine off-market are a very small percentage of property. They do exist, but it's just incredibly small. But it seems like every second property for sale now is off-market.
How about under market?
Yeah, that's a good one. Determine what is under market. Every under market sale is a kick in the groin to capital growth. That is the definition of negative growth, is everyone buying under market.
Well, every property is different, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So how do you – and the new market value is what you just paid for it.
Exactly. Strategies and red flags. So, again, might get a little bit of backlash, but I'm happy to – again, this is coming from us and what we see and just something to be wary of. So awards. Look, I don't know too much about this. I see everyone seems to be winning awards, mortgage broking awards. Like, how many awards are there? Or buyer's agency awards. How are they judged, Jeremy? Because a way I believe there should be one award and it should only be given once a year. And I guess it'd be factored onto maybe what customer satisfaction. But number one, capital growth. Have you outperformed everyone else?
Yeah, well, I've got two stories about the awards. First of all, I remember I went to a mortgage broker and on two occasions. One occasion, I didn't go ahead with the deal and I did not get the feedback survey. But then the other occasion, I went through with the deal and I got the feedback survey. So when they're calculating their performance based on reviews, they're only getting positive ones. That's the first story. Second story was with these, and that mortgage broker won awards. Okay, I was invited to be a judge on one of these, the Property Investor of the Year award.
I remember that was a while ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a while ago, and I was given all the applicants, and I had to pick which ones I thought were good and why, and provide some comments. And I was amazed at how many businesses want to promote themselves as Investor of the Year. That's obviously a marketing stunt. And there's all these, they give you the history, but they will omit some certain things. So you can see they bought their first property at this point in time. They bought in this location. They had this much growth. They renovated it or subdivided or developed it, whatever their strategy was. And then all of a sudden they've got a business and a massive portfolio. And I'm thinking there's something gone wrong here in the timeline. I need more details. And I honestly could not make a decision because there was so many discrepancies in the data, and there's another award that just goes to someone for no reason.
Very interesting with awards. Be skeptical again.
Mm.
Social proof, I've spoken about this earlier in the episode. I don't think I need to talk too much about that. Just be careful about seeing all the positive reviews, I guess.
Yeah, you read those Google reviews. Oh, we had a wonderful experience, sat down, had a lovely cup of coffee, so-and-so is enchanting. But hang on a second, don't you want a good property?
Yeah, well, it's more about, again, it's really tricky, isn't it? It's like, how do you see the whole portfolio? Because that's social proof to me. Show me all your picks and that's it.
Yeah, then you can, then you've got to assess their past performance, and you've got to know, have these been cherry picked?
Because that's it. Are you beating the national average? That would be if I'm going to a buyer's agent firm, that would be my argument. If you're a professional buyer's agent firm, are you beating the national average?
Yeah,
because a lot of the times you see is we've purchased this fantastic property with 2% yield in this area. It's like, well, how do you know it's fantastic? Because you need time to assess it.
Time has not passed yet.
And I would think the optimal time, I think 3 to 5 years, you want to get that upswing in capital growth, and then you can assess after. Do you sell that property? Do you move it into another one? Do you pull the equity out? But that's, to me, a really successful story for someone purchasing a property.
Yeah, out of all the Google reviews I've read, and I have not read many at all, but it's always about the experience. It's not about here's how the property has performed.
Charities, so if you get these nice flashy property reports, look, I'm all for charities. But if people are going online and I think, would I say boasting? Or not boasting. They've got these property reports, and at the end they contribute a portion to charity. Like, I just don't understand, why can't you keep that private and to yourself? Like, do it privately. You don't need to go on social media to say, hey, we're doing this for this company. Do it quietly. No one needs to know.
Because it is a marketing stunt.
It is. Like, keep it quiet.
Why wouldn't you just keep it to yourself? Because you're trying to promote yourself as, you can trust me. I generously give to charity. I'm not one of these dogs. It's just another marketing stunt.
I just think you need to I think you keep it private. That's my take. But
yeah, that triggers alarm bells to me when I hear there's no need to bang on about your contributions to charity. To me, they are marketing to me. They are trying to suck me in.
Well, what you do for others, I think you just need to keep that to yourself. Like, you don't need to, whatever I do for someone, I don't try and need to go out and tell everyone about it. Like, no one needs to know. You just do it because you want to be a good person. Yeah,
one of the questions you should probably be asking yourself is, what are they doing right now to get me alongside, bring down my barriers, increase my trust? And that would be a good one. I contribute to charity.
Again, it takes time to build trust. And we're going to do, I'll leave it to the end of the episode to keep people hanging. So beware of buyer's agents with limited scope. So we're big on borderless investing. You look at the data, and Jeremy, you built the algorithm back in 2010, and you're big on investing in other locations. And again, at the back end of this episode, we're going to discuss something, but don't go to a buyer's agent similar to real estate agents. You go to a buyer's agent, let's just say in Sydney, and that's all they know. They just know Sydney. So I live in Sydney. I go to a buyer's agent in Sydney. They might buy me a unit somewhere. Is that the best property that my money can get me, where you could go into these other markets and get double-digit or higher probability of double-digit growth?
Yeah, and the odd thing is that, you can use, let's say you've identified Sydney as the next boom city, and then you might want to engage the services of a professional within Sydney. Even within Sydney, some of those old school buyers agents may just always operate in the same suburbs, and they might not be the best suburbs in Sydney.
And they're going to push you for that. They're going to say, we know the areas, we know best, utilise us. But what you should be asking is, you do your own due diligence first, look at the information that you've got, shortlist the areas that you want to go to, and then go, okay, maybe then utilise a buyer's agent there if it's just hard for you to get to that location, i.e., let's just say Hobart as an example. I don't have the time, but look, I found someone with great recommendations potentially. And that's maybe the thing. Maybe you try and talk to a couple professionals there and see who they all recommend, who's the go-to.
Yeah, and I think there is still a benefit that if you have identified the location, you hire someone who is familiar with that location, they're an expert in that location, that can save you, it protects you from paying too much. They will know the area very well. So there is a benefit to having, local expert knowledge, but why have you gone to that locality in the first place?
And don't be rushed into anything either.
Mm.
So if you are with a buyer's agent, they're trying to rush you to get a deal, just be skeptical. Have they written a book? I think this is your all-time favorite. Now, I've read a lot of property books in my time, and I've thrown a lot out. Donated some of them, donated a couple, but I think thrown out.
What was it I used to say to you? The first step to go from novice property investor to expert is you got to write a book, because I've read so many books from novice investors.
Yeah, with the books, it's I think books can be great, and I listen to a lot of podcasts, and it's just a great way to get information in. And again, I think it's like trial and error. Example, like with training or diet or with your finances, you have to sort of find what works for you individually. So you might go, oh, okay, that sounds okay. Maybe I'll give it a try and implement it. But for me, it's all about trying to keep everything a real minimalistic, simple lifestyle, be it whatever I do in my life. And I think with books, you might get some key points in there going, like, that's great. An example for our work week, I've read many times, but there's certain things where I'm like, yep, I agree. There's other things I don't, but it's all sort of that trial and error, isn't it?
Yeah. There are good books out there. I have read books from even people that I don't like and thought, you know what, that was pretty good. They covered all the bases. And then you read books and this is obviously just another marketing stunt. This is full of fluff.
Well, the one that came to me is you always see best-selling. They're all best-selling. So I get confused. Is there actually a best-selling book, or none of them are best-selling?
Yeah, I remember there was back in the day when they published magazines, one of these issues, it came with a book from one of these authors. And I'm thinking that issue of the magazine would go out to an enormous number of people. Are they counting that in their best sales? Like it's part of the... Yeah, there's all these cunning strategies.
Well, I think it's to bring leads in. They want the email, and you do a bit of digging, and that's the way to go. Yeah. Are you going to write a book, or?
I have no intentions of writing a book. No.
You're too busy.
Yeah.
Just buy positive cash flow property. So I think this is a big one, and we'll go to my cash flow analysis sheet. And I think you can find a balance. Again, it just comes down to your situation, and you have to find that nice balance of cash flow and capital growth. So the one thing is, you don't want to buy a property that has, let's say, a yield of 8% per annum, based on a $400,000 property and an 8% rental return, close to 9%.
Wow.
So it's not costing, let's say, $500 a week ahead, or $10 a week after tax ahead. That's not bad. It's like 2 coffees.
That's not much to brag about for nearly 9% gross rental.
We've spoken a lot about this. It's like the higher yield that you go, the more sacrifice you make on capital growth. But that yield really needs to come into your cash flow. So like, let's say you've done all your numbers and you know roughly you're saving, let's just say it's $1,500 or $1,000 a month. Then you might need to go for more of that yield, but you just want to optimize that growth. You don't want to sacrifice capital growth just because of yield. Because I guess with yield, you are getting some tax benefit back right away, but that capital growth isn't taxed until you sell that asset down the track. Plus, you also get 50% discount. So in your accumulation phase, you want capital growth. And I know, because I felt the pain of holding a property for a long time that has had minimal capital growth. So from a cash flow perspective, it was like neutral, but it just wasn't growing. Yeah. And I listened to a lot of the sales agents there, again, long time ago, because the Commonwealth Games were coming at the time.
Brisbane.
Gold Coast,
yeah.
So,
I think the key there, and we touched on that with a different episode, is that you pursue cash flow like crazy style, you're probably going to be hurting yourself. You can get decent cash flow and capital growth at the same time, but once you really start to push it, you're going to be sacrificing growth. And growth is measured in, double digits, whereas your cash flow, you're talking low single digits.
Well, in this example, I'm using an 88%, but like if you've already got a property that you're extracting equity out, you're going to be borrowing 100% of the property value because you need to pay for stamp duties, maybe a buyer's agent, some legal fees. So it's going to be almost impossible to find a property that's just going to be giving you money back because your loan repayments are going to be through the roof. So it depends on how you calculate your ROI. Are you doing it on the 80% lend, which some investors would do, or you can calculate it on the 105 or 6%. So if you calculate on that higher amount, it's not going to look great, is it?
Yeah, okay. That's just, like a calculation difference.
But that's what you do in your accumulate. You're not going to take on all this debt close to retirement if you've only got a small window. Okay? Moving on, the flash and the fundamentals. So the flashy car trap. I've seen this a fair bit online, but I was talking to my barber, what was it, a couple of days ago? Talking to my barber, and we're talking, and he said, look, driven guy, he's running a business, and like hats off to him, hard worker. And we talked about like property, and he goes, look, my dad wants me to buy a property because I've got this $50,000 car that I've got. And his dad's like, look, that's going to depreciate in value, sell it now, buy, try and buy an investment now, and then that way you can get the car in 2 to 3 to 4 years' time. And I agreed. I said, man, like if I was you, I'd be doing that. Like back then when I was in my 20s, I was like, the flash would have got me. So going on social media, and he goes, man, I see it too. I want the car now. I don't want to wait. But it's like if you can flip that around and get that portfolio sooner in your 20s, by the time you're 30, you're laughing. If you can get a couple under your belt, get the car later. But I get it. It's a lifestyle thing. So
yeah, it used to be called deferred gratification.
Deferred gratification.
Yeah, and I guess with so much of social media now, it would be really hard when that's all in front of your face. Look what I've got. Look what I've got. You can have it too. It'd be very difficult to make the right financial decision.
I did talk to my brother about it also, and he mentioned the same thing that, one of his friends just bought a car, and I push him to go, look, get the portfolio first. Like I'm trying to say, get that first because your life is going to be so much easier in the future. And I guess it's hard to see because you might be getting a capital growth on that property because you haven't either sold down or like he's at the moment, you're making that sacrifice now in cash flows, but later on you're going to be a lot better. But if you buy that property for, let's say, 500 and it goes up to 800, you haven't really realized that gain because you haven't sold the property. So it doesn't really feel like it, is it? So it's that balance of you still want to go traveling, you want to do the things that you want to do. So it is all about sacrifice and hard work. And the whole flashy car thing is they try and get you in right away. Hey, look what I've got. But it's a marketing ploy because what else have they got? They've got a BA business. How do you stand apart from everyone else? And look, it's just the angle that these companies will do to get you in the door, to get your email address that they can spam to and go for it.
Yeah, it is a bit peculiar, isn't it? Like I've got a property investment firm. Here's my car. You know you're being marketed to.
Well, some people don't, do they? The other one is, and look, good luck to them if they've got that car, but why do you need to flash it?
Marketing. It's all about marketing.
There's another one. Look, and I don't mind, I'm not a smoker, but I don't mind cigars here and there. And they're not cheap, obviously, with the taxes here. But there was one that I noticed about a year ago. I remember one of the guys, property experts, was smoking his cigar, saying that he's had a tough life, and now his portfolio's worth, I don't know, something like 50 million or something ridiculous. And he's got his cigar. I'm like, man, look at this guy, please.
So you're saying the cigar is a marketing ploy?
Well, it's more like, hey, look, I'm successful. Look at me. But again, I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't be roped into that. Yeah. But just be careful. The long-term approach. This is my favorite. This is my favorite one. And I know it's your favorite one too. Now, where do we start with this? Do you want me to start or do you want to start?
It's got to be one of the most often quoted riposts when you point out to someone, hey, that property has not grown, and what do they respond with? Long term. Just you wait, Jeremy, long term. But I could have had my money invested elsewhere for that. So it's an excuse.
It's an excuse that a firm will give you and they will defend. And look, you've paid money. My argument is you pay money to a professional. I want them to outperform the national average. And if they don't, there needs to be some sort of consequence. And at the moment, there is nothing. They just collect it. Thank you very much. Next.
Yeah.
So what I really like about this, and I'm going to show it in the next slide. I was really excited this week because you gave me a data set back from January 2010. It's like, how many rows did it have? Like 60,000 Excel rows?
I thought it was 500,000.
Look, I got into a pivot table. I was mucking around with the data. I obviously ask you a lot of questions, but I've tried to simplify it in this next slide. But what I want to point out here is, let's say 3 years ago, you went to a buyer's agent firm, and look, I'm using an average typical value for houses only. So you'll see Melbourne's a little bit higher. If you look at a lot of these CoreLogic reports, I think they smooth that out with Melbourne, like the units and houses. That's why I'm unsure why that Melbourne typical value is higher. Do you know why Melbourne would be higher there, Jez?
It could be just a subset of Melbourne suburbs, not all of them.
Correct. So what I've done is there's a statistical reliability number that we use within the data. So I've used suburbs that have a score of 55 or more in the statistical reliability. So it's how reliable is the data. So any suburbs that have, let's say, a statistical reliability of 55 or less, they're knocked out of this, or 54 or less.
Okay.
Because the data's not reliable. So I've gone, okay, so there's 497 suburbs in Sydney.
Well, yeah, that's a good example because I know there are just over 700, so it's knocked out a couple of hundred there.
This is only for houses. Melbourne's 364, Brisbane's 304, Adelaide's 296. So you get the gist. You go down the list. But let's say you purchased with a buyer's agent, let's say year, 2 years, let's say even 3 years ago is what I'm working off here. What I've got in this last column is the average 3-year growth. Oh, actually, so yeah, 3-year growth, total 3-year growth.
Oh, that's total. Wow.
Total.
Okay.
So, for example, in the Sydney subset, Sydney has grown by 7%, so below the national average. But you can see the outperformers, as we know. Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth, Townsville at 52%, Cairns at 18%, Toowoomba 43%, and the list goes on, Bundaberg. So these growth, like look at Rockhampton, but it's only looking at 13 suburbs, but 73%. So some really big heavy hitter gains there that you could have purchased. And this is the average typical value in today's dollars. So 3 years ago, these properties would have been a lot cheaper. Now, you go to a buyer's agent firm and they buy in Melbourne 3 years ago, okay? And then imagine you come back on, hey, you should have been buying in, why didn't you buy in Perth? Or why didn't you buy in Adelaide or Townsville? You just bought in Melbourne. And you get this excuse, Jeremy.
Long term,
you'll be fine. How would you argue that?
Well, I guess actually over the long term, like 20 plus years, that property will probably have about the same growth as the ones, say, in where was it, Rockhampton or Townsville or whatever. But the thing is, 3 years has passed and like 50, even 40% capital growth compared to -5. What I could have done is bought in Perth, had roughly 50% capital growth, sold, bring back double the equity that I had when I started, and now buy in Melbourne at the right time and then hold for the long term.
So even Canberra, like for example, let's say you used a buyer's agent firm in Canberra and they pushed you because that's all they know, well, you would have had negative growth also. So you really need to think outside the box here, don't you, as an investor?
Yeah, it's a good example, and it's about timing the entry into the market. Now you can hold long term, but you want to get off to a flyer.
And this is to show that you can time it if you look at information and you can make a decision based on whatever criteria that you utilize to try and find these markets. But it just clearly shows that you wouldn't be happy if you did use a professional firm, and if they try and defend it, it's like, are you guys fakes?
Yeah.
Like no one can predict the future. Like you, me, like no one.
No.
You can't. But you can look at data points. You can increase the probability of getting it right, and you still might not get it because you're going to have wins and failures. But this clearly shows to me that there were markets back then that, and I'm sure the data 3 years ago was pointing to these markets like Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth more than it was to Melbourne or Sydney.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, if a buyer's agent put me in Melbourne 3 years ago, recommended Melbourne,
You wouldn't be
I would
happy.
say, that's probably because their office is in Melbourne.
Well, what the really difficult part of it is that especially if it's your first property, if it's your last one, it's like you still wouldn't be happy about it, but it doesn't hurt as much. But let's say it's your first one and you're going through that accumulation phase and you bought and it's like, damn, I'm still in the same spot. I'm actually 5% down on what I was 3 years ago, when I'm seeing everyone online saying they bought in Perth or they bought in Townsville and their properties have gone up by 50%.
Yeah. And we're not putting down Melbourne at the moment. In fact, there are some parts of Melbourne right now that are showing good promise.
There are, not even just Melbourne, even other locations,
Yeah.
but it's just to say that be careful if you get this long-term excuse. And finishing up, conclusion. So I know that we've gone on and on a bit, maybe a little bit negative or skeptical, but I think be critical of who you trust, and it takes time to build trust. So what's the action plan from here? I would say do a lot of initial consults with a lot of companies out there and do a lot of your research background to see who you connect with. Like, don't trust someone blindly right away. Ask questions, see if they're maybe giving of your time. Obviously, you don't want to just give all your free time. I don't expect anyone to do that, but it's just trust is a big thing. And how do you build that? Because building trust takes years, Jez. It's taken us years to build trust.
Yeah, that's right.
How did you flush me out?
Yeah, it took a while.
It took a while, and that's it. It's just that things you build over the year, and I do realise, look, I was very skeptical. I trusted everyone right away. That was just my nature.
Too.
I just trusted everyone, and look, I talk to my grandmother a lot these days, and I just tell her it takes me a lot to bring people into my life these days.
Yeah, I was thinking about this episode. What's the best piece of advice to give a novice investor about property investing? Is it buy a house, not a unit? Is it buy established, not new? Is it steer clear of vacant land? Is it just hold long term? Is it this? Is it really the best advice that I reckon I could give a novice investor is you are going to be marketed to. Learn all the tricks about marketing. The presentation of flashy cars, the sweet talkers, the charming personalities, the pressure sales, the cherry picking past performance. Learn all the tricks that they use to get you in, and go with the professional that doesn't use as many of those tricks. Simply being aware of all those marketing ploys will stand you in good stead in this industry, and I think that's more important than learning how does negative gearing work? How do I get equity? How does it? I think that just learning how you are going to be tricked is more important than learning how to invest in property.
And yeah, that's a good point. And in future episodes, I am going to bring someone on, hopefully, that has done a lot of due diligence, just someone that did utilize a company but took a lot. Because I spoke to this gentleman on Zoom and I'm like, that would be a great episode because he's done a lot of this heavy work and I said, like, what made you trust this? Like, what sort of made you raise an eyebrow over this? And it's just really interesting to hear because even though I've done a lot of initial consultations and got a lot of experience, I want to hear from someone that's coming into property investing blindly. And I was blown away about how much he learns. So I was really
due diligence.
Due diligence, and it took it is a time thing, isn't it? When we're in a busy world, you want to try and you think you need to make a decision quickly, especially when a market's moving. Like when you're seeing those type of growth rates, you don't want to wait long, do you?
Yeah. I mean, you are talking about markets that are moving, a few $1,000s a week. So you think about that. Oh, I better jump in, but you're about to allocate minimum of $500,000. So you do need to take your time as well. So it's two-sided coin.
And I think it's about a process. Like, what process do you run? And I think we've got our process with investing, and we just want to keep refining and just get better. That's the goal. Always get better. Not for us just to, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. It's just there needs to be a process. You just need to constantly get better. Not have a service or a product. You want to lead with a great service or product. And business will come. It'll come from referrals, word of mouth. You don't want to lead with the marketing because that's what a lot of companies do. They lead with the marketing to get the business in. But what if you just don't spend as much money on marketing, but I don't know.
Yeah. I definitely, when I see all those sort of tactics, those marketing tactics, that turns me off a professional.
I think data overhype. Look at the information in front of you. We're in a data world age, and data is just going to get better and better. And just look at information. It's just, I guess, siphoning through all that information to make a decision on where to go next. Alrighty, Jez, do you have any?
No, that's it. I think
Outros
we've
for that?
covered. My last remark would just be have a healthy level of skepticism. Just be aware that you are being marketed to, and you should be right.
All right. So where can listeners go for more resources?
Well, hopefully this was of interest to you, and if it was, then you can subscribe and you'll get more. Let us know that it was, and we'll keep it coming. So give us a like. So what is it? Click like, share, subscribe.
No, that's all right. Like, share, and most importantly, always do your due diligence before making any property decisions, because like I said, that Melbourne example or any other examples, it can really hold you back if you don't get it right. So you want to put it all into your favor. But thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in our next episode. Take care and bye for now.